When you look at the context of the slate, I mean, this is literally one of the highest totals. So when you look at games that could potentially be back and forth competitive, like this is one of the ones that stands out while also featuring points. Obviously like Buccaneers 49ers can be competitive, but there ain't gonna be no points scored in that game. The Bengals are just red hot since these teams last met in week 8 when the Browns kind of whooped up on the Bengals on Halloween night. The Bengals have scored on 51.2% of their drives. That's number one in the NFL. The Browns are still a defense we inherently want to target. They're still allowing. I mean, the Texans lived in the red zone last week. They just couldn't close drives and then gave the Browns a bunch of defensive touchdowns. But the Texans still were able to move the football progressively as well in that game. So we do have this kind of hot Bengals offense that's a totally different version of what the Browns faced in that Halloween night that didn't have Jamar Chase in that game. And they handled the Jamar Chase thing obviously really well because Chase wasn't even limited last week. He comes back and he's in on 92% of the team dropbacks, just a full-time player. Looks like the Jamar Chase that we left off with that was really hot, cut 7 of 8 targets for 97 yards. So we do have Chase back in the fold. Obviously, it doesn't mean we can't play T. Higgins. He got in the box last week. He only had the 5 targets, but still, we've talked about his splits this season. He still has a 23% team target share on his routes run with Jamar Chase on the field. So we can get in on still him, get on Burrow double stacks if we want. Probably where the biggest conundrum this week will be how to handle the Joe Mixon return.
Yep.
We've got Joe Mixon coming off of concussion protocol, basically missed the last 2.5 games. Samaje Perine was excellent in his absence. 3 top 10 scoring weeks for Perine. I imagine we'll probably see something similar if I had to guess, and that's what we're doing right now with the situation because we're flying blind, is we see Mixon probably with something similar to his 2021 workload where Perine probably plays a little more of the passing down snaps that Mixon was getting. But the matchup's still good. We've got a home favorite Bengals team against a Browns defense that has been run on, although the Bengals did not run on them when they played on Halloween night. Something to keep in mind. But I think Mixon, the way Perine played in Mixon's absence, plus just coming back, plus not popping against the Browns in week 8, makes him a pretty intriguing kind of tournament play this week, though.
Yeah, Mixon looks pretty good in my stuff, at least early in the week. I wouldn't be surprised if people go right back to that well and move away from Perine. He's performing extremely well in the Sims, 3rd highest optimal rate on the slate on DraftKings. So that's super interesting. There's not a lot of prize picks I like on the Cincinnati side of the ball, but when we get to Cleveland, there's a few I think that stand out. Actually, you know what? We got to get this out because it's an offer that's way too good not to mention at least once early on in the episode. So if Justin Herbert throws for more than 1 passing yard, 1 yard, you win on PrizePicks this week. So if you haven't tried it out yet, this would be the time. You can claim the link in the description with code HOLKA. Now let's get back into the good stuff. So how are you approaching this post Deshaun Watson return Browns team right now?
Yeah, Watson looked like a guy that hadn't played football in 2 years on Sunday. Absolutely. He was dead last among all quarterbacks in the NFL last week in EPA per dropback. He was 10.9% below his expected completion rate. That was ahead of just Kyle Allen last week. And he was also 3 of 9 under pressure passing. And all things that signal a guy and played football in 2 years. Definitely, you're going to have to take a leap of faith with Deshaun Watson here, but it is a game environment where we believe the Browns are going to have to score points. They could potentially just be pressed to score points, chasing points on the scoreboard, although they have played the Bengals well in the past. They're 4-0 against Joe Burrow. So Joe Woods doesn't have a good defense, but he's put something on the field against the Bengals in those games. We'll see if that holds this week. But there are a lot of angles still here for like Deshaun Watson for you to play just the upside angle, and that doesn't mean you don't have to play Deshaun Watson either. But it should be a game environment that is conducive to the Browns having to throw. That would mean, we could look at a guy like Amari Cooper, who people will get into the weeds on the home road splits with Amari Cooper. I tend to not really follow that type of stuff. I think that there's really no objective evidence to say like why a guy would perform worse at home on the road. We don't really have a reason, so it's hard for me to get there. A couple weeks ago on the road too, he had an awesome game. He also had an awesome game against the Bengals when these teams played back in week 8. He had a season high of 131 receiving yards in that game. So I think that he's definitely still in play. Even his first week in Watson, he had 43% of the team targets. He had 61% of the team air yards. I'm going to throw that at the wall, whether he's at home or he's on the road, right? Like, I'm just going to take my chances and say, yeah, if a dude's going to get a workload like that, then he's going to run into better games than typically not. We'll see if Njoku's back. I mean, Njoku was 5th among all tight ends in yards per route run this season. He hasn't just been able to stay healthy the last couple weeks. His fill-in, Harrison Bryant, has been non-existent with him. And we can circle back to the run game, too. I mean, obviously, the Browns still have Nick Chubb. He did not catch pass for the first time in Week 5 last week because they actually kind of bottled up by the Texans for 80 yards on 17 carries. He also had just 54% of backfield touches, his lowest rate in a game this season. And that followed a week where he had 82% of backfield touches, which was his highest rate of the season the week before. Maybe those things were correlated where they got him less of a workload because his workload was such high the week before. But we saw him already have 104 yards and a pair of touchdowns when these teams played earlier in the season. And the Bengals run defense has been all over the map. I mean, they just allowed 120 rushing yards to the Chiefs running backs last week. And the week before that, they shut down Derrick Henry. The week before that, they allowed 90 yards and 2 touchdowns to Najee Harris. So they've been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde against the run. That basically lays out just about everyone in this one.
Yeah, that's one thing. It is a little bit more condensed, which is nice. But the Chubb stuff was definitely disappointing last week. What's interesting, I think, on the Cleveland side of the ball, I think that the Amari Cooper and the Nick Chubb numbers are significantly lower than they should be. So the two that I've been looking at, Amari Cooper more than 60.5 receiving yards, and then Nick Chubb more than 75.5 rushing yards. Both of those I have almost 20% higher in my projections. So that's something that I'd be looking at on PrizePicks this week, at least on the Cleveland side of the ball. So if you want to take those, there is a link in the description for your free $100 bet if you use code Holka. Those would be the two that I'd be narrowing in on. And I'd probably be waiting a little bit on the other side of this game if you wanted to game stack up a PrizePicks type of thing, because I don't like the Cincy stuff, at least so far. I guess, is there anything else in this game that you want to touch on before we build a lineup, Reeves? I feel like it is relatively straightforward, which kind of makes me nervous, honestly.
Yeah, the only thing to keep an eye on is that obviously, if there's no Hayden Hurst in this game, who had to leave last week's game due to a calf injury. Mitchell Wilcox is literally just like a blocking tight end. So that could give more interior opportunity to a guy like Tyler Boyd. Really just low run out, though, for Tyler Boyd. It's hard to kind of find a path for him outside of just him being on the field a lot. He's been on 90% of the team dropbacks. But with both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on the field this season, he's been targeted on just 12.8% of his routes. Also, the Browns have allowed a league low 6.2 PPR points per game to opposing slot receivers. He did have a touchdown when these teams met in Week 8. No real yardage or receptions. But I think that maybe people can get talked into him a little bit if Hurst is out.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely something to monitor throughout the week. We'll circle back to that, but let's move over to build a DraftKings lineup. Before we do that, I want to make sure everyone goes over and checks out a little bit more in detailed version of this game over on sharpfootballanalysis.com and the worksheet. I know Reeves is just continuing to grind on that thing each and every week, man. So we appreciate you, and everyone watching this should go check that out. What do we want to do with this roster, Reeves? Do we want to go on board with the Deshaun Watson experience, or are we just going to go with a tried and true Joe Burrow stack?
Yeah, I think we'll do Burrow here. Let's do a Burrow double. We'll do both Chase and Higgins because I don't know if many people will spend that much salary on both those guys.
I like it. Yeah, Chase and all the people were not rewarded really for last week because he's 3 yards short of the bonus, which is always super rough. Is there a cheaper defense this week, Reeves? I think Pittsburgh might be in play again.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's gonna be the one.
2,800.
At least we punch in.
Yeah.
They're at home, which we always look forward to. It's literally one of the lowest totals on the slate this week. The Steelers are a favorite this week, and they don't even have a 20-point implied team total.
God, that's crazy. What a gross game, man. Like that's the thing about these defensive plays, right? Like I understand the play, but I mean, I don't even really care about scoring. I want pass attempts. I want chances for turnovers. Right. I want all of those type of things. So like I get it. And I think it's fine for like an early week build to have these placeholders, but like just a little peek beneath the curtain. Like these are builds that are early in the week. Like by the end of the week, there's different things we're doing before we put these into tournaments. One of those for me, at least, is trying to get a little bit different at DST typically. So is there a Cleveland guy?
Yeah, and the way defense has been handled this year in DFS in general, I mean, they might want to start looking at alternatives.
Yeah, maybe we just like get rid of it. I don't know. Who knows? I'd rather see wouldn't you rather have like another flex or two than just like jamming in a weird like a defense every week?
I mean, it's literally people are just either paying down or going to like an either obvious spot.
Right.
It's literally just completely punting it. There's really no nuance to
There's
playing
not.
defense this year.
There's not. All right. Do we want a Cleveland guy on the other side of this?
I'm gonna say no for
All right.
now, but maybe.
Fair enough.
But I think we just run a blind Burrow double. I think there are options if you want to get here. I'm just pretty more. I'm a lot more confident in the Bengals side of this.
Mm-hmm.
But the Browns, like I said, have played the Bengals and Burrow really well in the past. So I don't think they're dead either.
Okay. Fair enough. We only have 3 games in the afternoon this week. We got KC, Denver, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, and Carolina, Seattle. So it's not great, honestly, later on. So I guess I'll kick it this way. Is there any other mini stacks that you've been kind of eyeing up early in the week that we could jam in here?
There's a couple I think we can go to maybe in some of the other games we talk about too. Let's do Dalvin Cook and DJ Shark on this one.
Nice.
We'll talk about both those because only because we cannot fit the Sun God in here.
Yeah, every single video we should give you the Sun God victory lap, man. Every time the guy scores or starts going nuts, I always think of you. So yes, we did have all the Sun God last week.
I don't know what kind of interns we got that we can work to go pull this, like make the montage, the all the Amon-Ra.
Oh yeah! If there's anyone out there watching this right now, email me at thejoeholkashow@gmail.com. If you would like to put together some sort of montage of Reeves talking about the Sun God, I will pay for that because I would love to have that over on Twitter. So email me. Okay. 4,500 or so the rest of the way. We got a running back, a tight end, and a flex.
Well, tight end is 2 punt plays this week. I think a lot of people will go to Dulcich or Okonkwo. I think this one might have to be an Okonkwo team because we're going to probably need every dollar we can scrounge up.
I think you're right. 5,500 now for a running back and a flex. Currently, no exposure to the afternoon. I don't know, man. I don't think that's like the biggest issue.
The afternoon games are bad.
Yeah, right. So I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to work something in. I think we want to go with Zonovan Knight again, just because his salary is so cheap. And Robert Slaw gave him a vote of confidence with even if Michael Carter plays this week. The Mike White dump downs are still real. He's catching a few passes a game, and he's been really good in terms of missed tackles forced and getting production. So 5,100, I think, on this slate where we don't have a lot of running back value, and I would much rather play Zonovan Knight than any of the Seattle running backs that you could, like the Travis Homers of the world.
What do you think about Pacheco at 57?
Tony Jones. Yeah, I think Pacheco is pretty interesting, especially because the game script in this game. We definitely have the salary for him.
Yeah, he would be kind of like a last one in, but I don't think he's terrible if you wanted to at least get one player in the afternoon.
Yeah. We can get Pacheco. We could do Garrett Wilson. That would give us 2 Jets, though. We can also do DeAndre Swift at 5,800, who we'll talk about, I'm sure, on another video too.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think about Swift, like ownership wise? Because I actually like that better than Pacheco because it just gives us a little bit more of a game stack with Chark and Dalvin. But what do we think of Swift after that 1 week of him just kind of going nuts?
If he practices in full on Thursday and Friday, which we're recording this before all that information is available, that's probably a good sign because last week was the first time since week 1 he was not on the final injury report. And he had the most touches he had in a game since week 1. He had his largest share of backfield touches in a game since week 1. So we feel good about it. And then we love the scoring environment for that game as well. So as long as he checks out physically and he's not on the injury report, I think we can stock some of what we've seen last week in terms of his usage.